It's rusting in green. Afternoon light, typewriters dreaming all through the night. A smiling sun hangs on a cardboard sky, where the future got lost but never learned to die. Unseen visions burning bright. Bradbury's ghost on SL tonight. Open the page, let the wonder ignite. Welcome to SL tonight.
Happy Thanksgiving, creeps. While the rest of the world is carving turkey and arguing with uncles, in 1845 one man decided to carve something far more dangerous. He wanted to carve time itself. Tonight, for the first time on this show, I'm reading the ending of the single most stomach-turning experiment in literary history. No music, no jump scares, just Edgar Allan Poe and what happens when you refuse to let a man die. If you're reading Pumpkin Pie right now, maybe put it down. Lights down, story starts. Now. The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar by Edgar Allan Poe, 1845. Of course, I shall not pretend to consider any matter for wonder that the extraordinary case of M. Valdemar has excited discussion. It would have been a miracle had it not, especially under the circumstances. Though the desire of all parties concerned to keep the affair from the public, at least for the present, until we've had further opportunities for investigation. Through our endeavors to effect this, a garbled or exaggerated account made its way into society and became the source of many unpleasant misrepresentations, and very naturally of a great deal of disbelief. It is now rendered necessary that I give the facts as far as I comprehend them myself. They are, succinctly, these. My attention for the last 3 years has been repeatedly drawn to the subject of mesmerism, and about 9 months ago it occurred to me, quite suddenly, that in the series of experiments made hitherto, there had been a very remarkable and most unaccountable omission. No person had as yet been mesmerized in articulo mortis. It remained to be seen, first, whether in such condition there existed in the patient any susceptibility to the magnetic influence. Secondly, whether, if any existed, whether it was impaired or increased by the condition. Thirdly, to what extent or for how long a period the encroachments of death might be arrested by the process. There were other points to be ascertained, but these most excited my curiosity, the last in especial from the immensely important character of its consequences. In looking around me for some subject by whose means I might test these particulars, I was brought to think of my friend M. Ernest Valdemar, the well-known compiler of the Bibliotheca Forensica, and author, under the nom de plume of Issachar Marx, of the Polish versions of Wallstein and Gargantua. M. Valdemar, who has resided principally at Harlem near New York since the year of 1839, is or was particularly noticeable for the extreme spareness of his person, his lower limbs much resembling those of John Randolph, and also for the whiteness of his whiskers, in violent contrast to the blackness of his hair. The latter, in consequence, has been very generally mistaken for a wig. His temperament was markedly nervous and rendered him a good subject for mesmeric experiment. On 2 or 3 occasions I had put him to sleep with little difficulty, but was disappointed in other results which his particular constitution had naturally led me to anticipate. His will was at no period positively or thoroughly under my control, and in regard to clairvoyance I could accomplish with him nothing to be relied on. I always attributed my failure at these points to the disordered state of his health. For some months previous to my becoming acquainted with him, his physicians had declared him a confirmed physicist. It was his custom, indeed, to speak calmly of his approaching dissolution, as of a matter neither to be avoided nor regretted. When the ideas to which I have alluded first occurred to me, it was quite natural that I should think of M. Valdemar. I knew the steady philosophy of his mind too well to apprehend any scruples from him, and he had no relatives in America who would be likely to interfere. I spoke to him frankly upon the subject, and to my surprise, his interest seemed vividly excited. I say to my surprise, for although he had already yielded his person freely to my experiments, he had never before given me any tokens of sympathy for what I did. His disease was of that character which would admit of exact calculation in regard to the epochs of its termination and death, and it was finally arranged between us that he would send for me about 24 hours before the period announced by his physicians as that of his decease. It is now rather more than 7 months since I received from M. Valdemar himself the subjoined note. My dear P., you may as well come now. D. and F. are agreed that I cannot hold out beyond tomorrow night, midnight, and I think I have hit the time very nearly. Valdemar. I received this note within half an hour after it was written, and in the chamber of the dying man. He had been lying for some hours in a state of partial lethargy, from which he was occasionally roused by the exclamation of his medical attendants. I found him sitting up in bed, supported by pillows. The two physicians, Dr. D. and Dr. F., were in attendance together with his two nurses. M. Valdemar spoke to me immediately, and with perfect distinction. I fear you have been delayed, said he. Dr. D. then told me that, according to the best calculations, M. Valdemar could not survive beyond midnight. It was then about 6:30 in the evening. I took my place at once by the bedside and commenced a series of passes. In less than a minute the patient slept. The physicians and nurses retired to the adjoining room, leaving me alone with the dying man. For nearly 7 months, by daily mesmeric passes, I kept M. Valdemar in this state, neither dead nor alive, his body cold, his eyes glazed, yet answering questions when addressed in the mesmeric manner. At length, yesterday, I resolved to terminate the experiment. I made the passes with the intention of awakening him. The usual eternal sensations were experienced by the patient were, however, not manifested. The limbs remained pliant, the jaw fell open, and from the mouth proceeded a voice, such as it would be madness in me to attempt describing. There were, it is true, 2 or 3 epithets which might be considered as applicable to it. In part, I may say, for example, that the sound was harsh and broken and hollow. But the hideous whole was indescribable for the simple reason that no similar sounds have ever jarred upon the ear of humanity. It said, yes, no, I have been sleeping, and now, I am dead. For some minutes after this answer, all was still. Then the voice again spoke. For God's sake, quick, quick, put me to sleep, or quick, waken me. Quick, I say to you that I am dead. I now felt that the crisis had arrived. I made the mesmeric passes rapidly, several times with all my energy, in the direction of awakening. While thus engaged, the tongue of the corpse rolled violently in the mouth, and there issued from the distended and motionless jaws a voice such as never yet grated on mortal ears. I say to you that I am dead. The room was filled with deadly and unfathomable odor. The swollen tongue, black and loathsome, protruded between the teeth. The entire frame quivered and shook as if in the agonies of dissolution. And then, in an instant, upon the bed before that company, there lay a nearly liquid mass of loathsome and detestable putridity. Happy Thanksgiving. Don't forget to save me some leftovers. I like mine extra aged.